Weapon Pickup. When the player overlaps with a weapon pickup, it casts to the player blueprint and sets the respective has weapon boolean to true. The HUD blueprint then recognizes that a has weapon boolean has been set to true in the player blueprint, filling in a weapon slot with the respective weapon at the bottom of the HUD. Pickups. Simple pickups litter the level to help the player. Once the player overlaps with them, they cast to the player blueprint and manipulate a variable held there, typically increasing them by a set value, before destroying themselves, preventing them from being picked up several times. Other than weapon pickups, there are currently 4 different pickups currently in the game, 3 ammo pickups and 1 health pickup. Firing. When a weapon is swapped to, there is a cast to the base weapon blueprint in the player blueprint, which holds most of the information and code for each weapon. A series of booleans are set to true or false, once again distinguishing what weapon is currently equipped. When the shoot enhanced input is triggered in the player blueprint, a series of checks determines what weapon is currently equipped before activating a shoot weapon custom event, which activates a weapon's individual blueprint that handles its flipbook state and fire rate, which then triggers the fire weapon function in the base weapon blueprint. The base weapon then checks again for which weapon is equipped, firing the correct spawn line trace or spawn actor node. Enemy damage. Once the typical health system reaches the death check, if it is dead, the enemy movement is deactivated, and the death animation is played. Once completed, the animation is set to another paper flipbook of the enemy's dead body, and the collision settings of the collision boxes are set to no collision to allow the player to move over and to shoot through the remains of the enemy. If not dead, the paper flipbook of the enemy is set the damage taken flipbook before being set back to its default. Shotgun firing. When the shotgun or rocket launcher are equipped, to avoid being re-triggered when the shoot input is released, after equipped weapon checks, a do once node is used. Ammo is checked, subtracted, and then shoot weapon is fired before a delay is used before resetting the do once, preventing either weapon from being fired out of sequence. The code for the shotgun in the base weapon blueprint is very similar to that of the machine gun, just with a few key differences. Before the line trace is fired, for loop is used to loop the preceding code a set number of times, and as there is no delay set, this is done instantly. This acts as the projectile count of shots fired by the shotgun. The more loops, the more pellets. As a result of the increased number of shots fired, the random floats in range node affecting weapon spread are set to a more extreme range. Another thing that the shotgun and the machine gun code share is that the line trace nodes are also connected to an array filled with things the line trace is meant to ignore. World static objects, world dynamic objects and pawns are all set to be ignored so that the guns don't damage what they don't need to. Large enemy damage. The larger enemy shares the same code as the small enemies, except that it can be stunned by the shotgun. At the death check, if not dead, there is a second death check that prevents excess pellets from the shotgun from reactivating pieces of code. A cast to the player blueprint then checks to see if the player has the shotgun equipped. If so, the stun boolean is set to true and the can attack boolean is set to false, allowing the player to get close to the enemy without its attack system being triggered. Its movement is disabled, and its animation is set to the stunned animation. After a set delay, this is all reversed, returning the enemy back to its default state. If it wasn't shot by the shotgun, the normal damage animation is played, and the large enemy continues as normal. Firing machine gun. Each weapon has a unique firing profile. The shoot enhanced input has a pressed and released function that is used to activate and deactivate a gate node, depending on whether the shoot button is being held down or not. Once triggered, the gate node can effectively loop a section of code until told to stop or close. In this instance, for the automatic fire of the machine gun, that code being a delay node that acts as the rate of fire, a branch then checks if the ammo count is above 0, which if false will closes the gate. If true, it subtracts ammo from the ammo variable before activating the shoot weapon custom event, which then feeds back into the enter pin of the still open gate, restarting the loop. Once the flip books have been set and the fire weapon node has been triggered with the appropriate checks having been made, line trace for objects node is activated, spawning a line trace wherever it is told to, in this case being wherever the player is looking. An apply damage node follows and is connected to a break hit result node to deal damage to whatever the line trace hits. Afterwards, the location pin of the break hit result node is connected to a spawn actor node that spawns the bullet dust blueprint at the line trace hit location. The bullet dust blueprint simply plays a short paper flipbook that is rotated to face the player before destroying itself. Swapping, when the player uses the 1, 2, or 3 key to select an owned weapon, the enhanced input node is triggered. There is first a branch check making sure the respective weapon has been picked up. If true, a short series of weapon-equipped booleans are updated. In this case the machine gun-equipped boolean is set to true whilst the booleans for the other weapons are set to false. The player's child actor component is updated to the selected weapon blueprint, swapping the paper flipbooks to match the chosen weapon. Rocket launcher, sharing the identical do-once code that the shotgun has, as well as basic checks, the rocket launcher code starts with a spawn actor. The actor it spawns is the BP_fired rocket blueprint, which consists of a rocket sprite and a collision box. The rocket is set to be fired at an offset from the player's face, making it appear as though that the rocket is being fired from the held rocket launcher sprite. Using the projectile movement component on the fire rocket, I can control the rocket's speed among other stats. When the collision box hits something, the actor activates its explosion component. When the explosion component activates, it fires a spawn emitter at location node, which uses the base explosion emitter to create a visual explosion at the hit location. A fire impulse node is used to create pushback for the explosion, and an apply radial damage node is then used to apply damage surrounding the hit location. The damage value and damage radius variables are set to whatever value I want. Large enemy damage, the larger enemy shares the same code as the small enemies, except that it can be stunned by the shotgun. At the death check, if not dead, there is a second death check that prevents excess pellets from the shotgun from reactivating pieces of code. A cast to the player blueprint then checks to see if the player has the shotgun equipped. If so, the stun boolean is set to true and the can attack boolean is set to false, allowing the player to get close to the enemy without its attack system being triggered. Its movement is disabled, and its animation is set to the stunned animation. After a set delay, this is all reversed, returning the enemy back to its default state. If it wasn't shot by the shotgun, the normal damage animation is played, and the large enemy continues as normal. Player damage, all of the health systems in the game start with an any damage node, which is followed by the character's health variable being set with the incoming damage subtracted from its current total value. In the player blueprint, a branch and a less than equal node are then used to check whether the player's health has dropped to or below 0. If so, the is dead boolean is set to true and the game is set to paused. The player input is set to UI only as the death screen widget is created and added to viewport, allowing the player to select whether they would like to quit or restart.